Then you went off to do more of a consultative kind of deal.
Well, it was just commission-based plumbing where you weren't hourly anymore. It was you got paid on what you'd sell. Like if I went to your house, I'd need to sell you on water softener so I can make some money on it. So
got it.
More sales role.
And so I'm asking this question, you know, a lot of people that are listening that are trying to balance, right, two different roles. Like in a perfect world, we're doing this full time, but reality is a lot of people are trying to make this happen while they get their other job, whether they got family or they're just not ready to jump with both feet. Mm-hmm. How was it for you when you're trying to do this with, like, you know, in wearing two different hats?
It didn't work at all. It was a nightmare. I was drained, got burned out really quick because it felt like nothing was working. It wasn't working because I wasn't putting in enough time. You know, I was expecting to go find a deal my first month in, sending 100 texts a week, and it just wasn't realistic. But at that time, I didn't know that. I thought you just jump in and find deals in Phoenix and you're good. Well,
I think there was a time where that was a realistic expectation.
Right.
It just was no longer realistic by the time you got in.
Right. Especially in this market.
Sure. Okay. So you tried doing this on your own. Mm-hmm. It wasn't working. And at some point you said, you know, like, you wanted to work with us.
Right.
So, be totally honest here. Mm-hmm. How was that experience? Because, you know, don't try to protect my feelings. How was that experience?
No, I wish I would have listened to you guys when you said, hey, you can't do this 1 foot in, 1 foot out. You know, we'll try it. We'll see if get some deals, get some confidence, and then you can quit the job. And we did able to find one deal. Ruben locked it up for me because I was terrible on the phones. You know, I talked too fast. I was in such a rush. I didn't jump on the morning calls to hear, you know, the role play and stuff like that. So I was limiting my own growth by thinking, oh, I knew everything and I can figure this out.
Right.
Yeah.
So, but were there any things that because you eventually you went on to do your own thing, right? That's why you're here.
Right.
So were there any things that you learned there that made sense later on, or like things that were surprising when you were working with us?
So I liked how you guys had the team set up, and that's something that I kind of duplicated, and you know I have now is very similar of what I saw when I was on the team, and the importance of sales training, really pouring into yourself and getting that education so that when you have the opportunity, you can capitalize on it instead of miss out on so many that I did.
Instead of practicing, when you finally get good quality leads.
Right.
So your very first deal is one you did with Ruben.
Yep.
So talk to us about that deal.
So that one I found driving for dollars because I was plumbing. So I was driving all over town and I had whichever app at the time before Batch Driven came out, PropStream, Deal Machine, whatever we were using back then, and found a mobile with all this trash thrown outside of it. Like all the furniture had been moved outside. I was like, well, that's interesting.
Yeah.
Put a sticky note on the door, added it, and then brought it back. And Ruben's like, all right, let's skip trace it. Let's cold call it. Got her on the phone. She's like, yeah, my tenant got in a shootout with the police. He is no longer living and we'd love to sell this house. So Ruben negotiated a great price. Him and Max went out there, met her in person, got the contract signed. And yeah, that was rest is history.
So that was your first deal.
Yeah.
And then what happened after that?
I just couldn't duplicate it. And then I kept not listening to you guys where you're like, you need to stay on the phones. I'm like, no, driving for dollars worked. I'm going to do all that.
Yeah.
So I spent all my time driving for dollars in person, which takes way too much time. And then, so I just couldn't duplicate it and felt that the system was broken instead of being introspective and realizing I was the problem.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we kept pushing you and eventually we parted ways.
Right.
And so at this point then, was this when you were still driving for dollars at this point? So when did you quit your plumbing job exactly? And when exactly did we part ways?
We parted ways because I wanted to focus on the plumbing job and then the live-in flip that we were doing. Because I was like, if we can sell this house, I'll have a nest egg and then I could potentially quit the plumbing job.
Right.
So spent all day plumbing and at night laying tile, fixing up the bathrooms, getting this thing ready for market. And then we eventually sold that. Chris and I moved into our new house and then I had a nest egg. And even then I still wasn't ready to take the leap. You know, we sold that house, made 80 grand on it. It's the biggest check I had ever seen in my life. And I was still uncomfortable about leaving the day job until I had some more guidance. Jesse Burrell kind of got in my head and kicked me out of the nest. He's like, every day you go to do plumbing, you're losing money.
Right.
And that just for whatever reason resonated. I'm like, he's absolutely right.
So I'm glad that you hit that because that was gonna be my next question. Like, what was it, like the impetus, the thing that pushed you over the edge? So it was basically just Jesse explaining clearly that you're throwing money away by working.
Yeah, because after we sold the house, I started dabbling again, started wholesaling on weekends and found another deal. started getting a little more traction after I poured into more knowledge, right? I started really going heavy into sales books, transactional analysis, neurolinguistic programming to understand the sales process. Like I didn't understand a lot of what we were doing back then, like with the negative reversing and stuff like that. I was like, oh, that's just, you sound rude. This doesn't work.
Right.
And now I understand the psychology behind it. So then I felt more capable and I started capitalizing on those opportunities.